Alright, do not God video presentation. Just a little bit on the counter argument to the cliche average person response to taking any responsibility or accounting for the tremendous suffering on planet Earth. The hard and brutal sacrifices made for their personal existence in so many unseen ways. You could say all the people who died in the plague, and you can go way before the first plague. Lots of tragedies struck the human race, Pompeii and all kinds of things. Probably not the worst way. Yeah, it's pretty bad though. Suffocating on volcanic ash is probably no good. Anyway, lots of human horror. Absolute horror. Getting eaten by crocodiles. Lots of things have happened to human beings. Lots of things continue to happen to them. You kind of have to be lucky, or life could be incredibly unpleasant. Horrifically unpleasant. Your worst nightmare kind of unpleasant. You go blind, you go deaf. Lots of horrible things. Make life very, very difficult. And some are very, very painful things, horrible disabilities. There's all kinds of horrible ways to die. And, most people fall into some middle category where it takes months, if not years, to succumb, finally, to the slings and arrows of the fact that the evolutionary system is dependent on your mortality, your demise, and it will kill you, and it can be quite brutal. So lots of battlefields, lots of moaning and groaning, lots of very bad experiences. All for sitting on a pier, fishing, hitting some golf balls in your retirement, poorly, some special little moments. I don't know, people, they tend to imply that playing with grandchildren is big fun. I tend to doubt that really is. So I'm not going to put that in the category, because I think a lot of that is fake. But, they have these Rockwellian type images of these splendors of life that seem pretty, is that as good as it gets? And the stuff that really you could call splendor in the grass, when you're haymaking, it's such a tiny percentage of the fun, that you really can't make much out of it. But you don't spend much time in that blissful state of, preoccupation in some delusion of superhero fun. But anyway, so, there's a lot to account for here. And they just glibly step past all of the bodies and all of the pain and all of the misery and all of the suffering, carrying their silly little life lever flag, pro-human, and account for nothing. These pro-lifers, pathetic. So anyway, this is just a pathetic example. He's really pathetic at doing physics arguments also. But, this juvenile, immature ethics is just so,
Gary's one of those people who wants to blow the world up because he is unhappy.
Yes, and even if that were true, which it is not. Sorry about this damn volume. I don't really want to. I really have to load the browser again. My bad. Sorry. Oh, great. It didn't load. And then I have to do it down here. Okay, that should help. And then that happens, and then I have to do this. Okay. So anyway, all right, so I'm unhappy. Let's say this is true, which I'm saying I'm horribly lucky. And I'm very happy not to be you. And I'm happy not to be theoretically, 99% of the other humans. I wouldn't want to live their life. I'm saying it quite seriously. I really wouldn't want their life. I wouldn't like to exchange mine for theirs. So even though I have been rather sullen and dissatisfied and combative with the facts of life for most of my existence, I'd still take my life over theirs because, frankly, mine's more genuine and real than theirs. And, they're just living in an illusion. Think they're spectacular when they're really not. They're living such a, they're driving around in a beat-up Volkswagen, with smiley faces painted on it. I mean, it just isn't my definition of. It doesn't have any integrity. It's not cool. It's not neato. It's not any of that stuff. It's fail. And so I've paid a price to be a winner in the sense that I'm staying in the real world. And even the stuff that doesn't matter, cosmetic and other features, I'm glad to have mine, not yours, all of that kind of stuff. So, I've been lucky. I take my health over their health. I take a lot of things, So I've been lucky. And the fact remains, though, not lucky enough. I mean, not lucky enough to say, oh, I'll take all of that crap and do it all over again. No, thank you. I don't want to do my life over again. I don't want to do your life over again. I don't want to do any more of this silly hopscotch. You're playing hopscotch in a lava bed. It's just stupid. It's so irrational and it's so distant from taking any responsibility for how bad the game goes. These games just don't end well. Lots of Romeo and Juliet, lots of love triangles, lots of pain and suffering. And it's just cruel to say, oh keep doing that over and over again.
He's unhappy with the world, so he wants to destroy the whole world.
I wanted to. Look, the word "destroy" seems kind of silly to say it that way. I want to cure the disease. Okay, the fact is that humans are the disease, but it doesn't have to do with kill. It just has to do with eradicate and lots of other words you could use. Pause them. Take their fangs, defang them. Lots of ways you could say it. So yes, I desire that we cease to take children and throw them into a meat grinder. Now, there's lots of ways to do that. The simplest way is to stop making kids, and then you can't throw them into a meat grinder. So that would be my first choice. But whatever. I'd say it's better ended, no matter how it ends. It can't end badly, because the ending ends so much more than, it's a huge prevention. And that huge prevention, you couldn't put a price on it. I mean, how many people do you give the plague to stop the plague, right? I mean, realistically, if you could prevent the people from dying horribly from the plague, and you had to give a certain number of people the plague to stop the plague, what would the number be, right? You'd say, well, go ahead, sacrifice just as many that died, except one. So if I cured one person of the plague by giving the plague to just as many people that got the plague, then I did okay. Because my net balance is one survivor, one healthy person, one not horribly tortured person. They died of a heart attack instead of the plague. I mean, that's always the context here. Is you can't almost say anything because you're a kind of moron has so little perspective, you don't even realize that we're all sentenced to death. And frankly, the death most of us are going to succumb to is going to be a lot worse than an electric chair or the gas chamber, right? So we're all sitting on death row as if we should be punished for a crime. The worst criminals against humankind we treat kinder than nature treats us, which doesn't make very much sense. It just kind of shows how you people don't do logic very well. It's not much of a punishment to sentence somebody to a death that you would choose over your own death. Your own death is going to be a lot worse than those 32 seconds in the electric chair, or 17, or 6. But anyway.
under the pretense, and this is where you come off sounding like a 15th or 14th century member of the Spanish Inquisition.
Yes, anybody who has an opinion could sound like the Spanish Inquisition. So morons will do that, and they'll say anybody who has an opinion is just like the Spanish Inquisition. Well, clearly I'm not using dogma. I'm not reading your sentence out of a book. I'm making a logical argument pointing out how you're totally irrational, that you don't even understand that you have to really account for what your existence costs. And you're basically saying, because I'm pro-life, I can sentence people to a life they don't want to live. I can impose it on them. See, somebody with a working logic could understand that that's the same thing as spending somebody else's money. When you impose the consequences on somebody else, when you defer the consequences into somebody else's wallet, that's stealing. And that's all you're doing. You're just stealing from people who have no interest in your silly adventures. And they don't want to, eat out of the cat litter box like you do. And you're forcing them to. You're the one deciding for them. You're the fascist. You're the inquisitioner saying, I believe in God, you must believe in my God, you must invest in life. You're doing that, you idiot. You hypocrite, you duplicitous, illogical, nonsense talker.
Religious nuts that were out to kill you to save your soul. You know how stupid that sounds?
Again, it sounds nothing like that. I mean, the real prevention is real. It's not a fake prevention. I did save them. So there's no argument, that makes any rational sense. You're the one sentencing them to death. I'm freeing them from the obligation to go ahead and bother doing that. You're the one who wishes to force them to do that. You're the one putting them on death row. I'm not doing it. You're doing it.
You want to end everyone's suffering. You want to save us by suffering.
No, I want you to justify it. And so I want you can have all the suffering you want, crazy pants. Okay? If you want to spend all day being a masochistic loony and hurting yourself, fine. I'm saying you have no right to make innocent victims. People who didn't buy a lottery ticket. People who didn't go to Las Vegas. People who didn't waste their money on orange shirts with duct tape on them. Why should they have to pay a price for your silly notions of what looks good or what's the right idea or what's a good fun thing to do? They shouldn't have to pay the entrance ticket. You should. You want to go to Disneyland? You pay for it. Don't force somebody else to do it.
Blowing the planet up with nuclear bombs.
After all the humans have decided to stop procreating, which the majority of humans are already deciding, so let's understand the majority of culturally sophisticated humans on Earth, the more sophisticated, the smarter, the less they breed. Okay, so the smartest people are already breeding way under replacement population, which means extinction. So they've already decided that's not too scary. That's an acceptable risk. However you want to put it, they're not hysterically upset by that proposition, and so it's just get the bigger majority. And winnow ourselves down to a reasonable few people who don't mind volunteering to ride the missile to the ground, like in movie theater fun. You Yahoo, and you be on our way, and we just get rid of this whole sloppy, idiotic, sentient, tortured life for no good reason thing.
Or worse, given the mechanism, you want to drive the Earth into the sun.
I don't know. Did I ever say that? But sure, it's an option. Well, we have the technology, so to speak, in the sense that, yes, if we did, say, create some disturbance on one side of the Earth, there's every likelihood that disturbance would push it into a tighter orbit, and you may be able to collapse its survivability in its current orbit. Just slowing it down would work, right? So if we just blow it up in the forward motion in the orbit, there's every likelihood we could take enough velocity off the Earth to cause it to fall into the sun. Yeah, that's good physics, frankly.
So I'm questioning your sanity, Gary. Who the hell is...
Again, you're not doing it with any kind of rational arguments connected to the actual facts. So the actual facts are that we are essentially just crocodiles with a different kind of tool, the tool of a scheming brain, and that this planet is just, a horrible, wasteful carnage. It is a meat grinder, and that's all it does. It doesn't do anything but, make stuff so it can destroy the stuff. And it's silly and futile and at a huge, gigantic, insane price. The amount of suffering endured on planet Earth per second is unacceptably high. And I would argue anyone who thinks it's acceptably high, okay, I would argue that they're sadistic, evil, insensitive monsters. Hitler wasn't as stupid as you.
Is letting you roam the streets, or are you just staying in your cave? And by cave, that's it.
It's just more bullshit about irrelevancy. So what does that have to do with any of these arguments? Oh, that doesn't have anything to do with them. Yeah, I don't like people much. No doubt about it. I don't think you're fun. I don't think you're interesting. I don't like anything about the average human. But I'm not making arguments that they should be killed because they're average humans or they're unlikable. I'm making an argument that they're suffering too much and they're forcing other creatures on this planet to suffer too much for too silly a dance. We're not doing anything of merit, but scratching our own itches. We make our own messes emotionally and then we attempt to clean them up and we don't even do it successfully. So we just leave mess behind. Uncleaned up mess. We make messes. We don't fix messes. I'm arguing we should. That's logical.
That's a metaphor. That means you're isolating yourself away from humanity. And
who cares? Like I say, if I did it because I had a condition, I had an immune disorder and couldn't afford human interaction, or I did it because I hate humans, or I did it because I have some neurological, subjective, chemical reaction that makes me want to throw up on your face, what's the difference? It's probably more the third one than anything else. You make me sick. Human behavior makes me sick.
Barely dealing with the barest minimum number of people because you hate people. You hate everybody. And
I hate everybody because they're all illogical. So show me somebody illogical and I won't hate them. I love Dr. Kevorkian. I wouldn't mind sitting and having tea with Kevorkian every single day. No problem. A real human being. One who sort of understood his place in the universe and that the idea is to reduce this suffering. And, you people are silly. That was his opinion also. You're silly.
I don't think you really hate everybody. I think you hate yourself.
Well, you can think all kinds of things. I think you really do have a really small penis, little tiny testicles. I think you do.
I'd like to know the conditions that caused you to think.
Well, just again, what conditions caused you to think you're a magnificent example of monkey man? And you're all doing something so splendid and so fantastic. Where's your great examples of the great humans of humankind? Show me some of that. I mean, even people like, if you get into the science argument, even people like Galileo were sort of buttheads. I mean, he basically killed his daughter. I mean, after he shoved her into a nunnery. We're very flawed and very unfunctional. And why you feel any pride and need to keep perpetuating your kind into the future when you see what they do in the world. You rape your own children, for fuck's sake. What care? What anything do you care? You're just all about you, and your cat, and you're this, and you're that. You have no capacity to look beyond your selfish bullshit. None. You're lost in it. You think the world is your silly desk and your silly little trophies. Ugh.
Like this. You're out there openly bragging how intelligent you are, yet...
Yes, compared to. Compared to what? Well, you, again, show me the person who's doing it better. Show me the person who's putting the puzzle pieces of reality coherently together and doing it without breaking the pieces and squashing them and smashing them and hammering them and playing bullshit, making up imaginary pieces. Show me somebody doing it better.
You're acting like a moron.
Show me even, some tiny percentage of the human race doing it better. Just show me any indication that you might have a candidate for better. Show me some indication of why I should be humbled by how putrid and not even humbled. That's not the word he's looking for. He's asking me to believe that the rest of humanity has some brilliant ideas and they're doing brilliant things. When no, they're putting solar panels on roofs, completely retarded, throwing away half the value of the panels. And those examples exist all over the place. Everything human beings touch, they turn into selfish crap. They try to commercialize it. They try to make a buck off of it. They try to resell it. They're constantly shenaniganing. They're snookering, playing these stupid weaselly games. What's in it for me? They fuck everything they do up. They don't put batteries in their fucking nuclear power plant. They're assholes.
You've really picked the wrong person to argue with me.
Oh, yeah, you're so frightening. Ooh, I wet my panties. The crazy Australian guy's got an Australian at me. Ooh, might throw a kiwi at me or something. Oh, wrong island. Koala. Koalas they're scary, aren't they? Glorified tree sloth.
Okay? You do not argue with me, Gary.
Why? These are the funny parts, right? So this is just the funny part.
Lose. And you'll lose time.
Sorry. No, that just never happened. Just sorry, it just doesn't happen. Okay? No. You people always promise that you're going to come up with some argument that means something, that's somehow connected to a fact somewhere, some stream of logic. But you promise logic and you never deliver any. Ugh, but you're pathetic. All right, so that's probably enough of part one.
Time again.
Last bit.
I've dealt with people like you. Similar people with what you'd call narcissistic personality disorder.
So whether I have a narcissistic personality disorder, again, just completely irrelevant. I've made actual arguments. You're saying evolution's a good idea. It's really great to kill thousands of little children to save one, so one lives and fights and has to get beat up and has to go through all this bullshit and gets its fur ripped off and all this other nonsense. You're the one defending a fucking slaughterhouse and then saying, hey, it's a great idea. Everything works out just fine. You're a retard. You haven't won any argument here. You haven't made any argument here. You're just a silly person who has just bought a bunch of crap they fed you. Whatever porridge they fed you, you're sitting there doing commercials. Oh, I think Aunt Jemima Wheaties is the best cereal ever because that's what my mommy fed me. You haven't used your brain in any way whatsoever but to smell somebody's ass and say, I'm going to go follow that ass. Ugh, pathetic. You're a sheep-ole.
Disorder, megalomania, paranoia.
No evidence of any of that. Okay, so show me the paranoia that exists somewhere. What's the example of a demonstration of one of my paranoid ideas? Phew, pathetic. You're the one who thinks the government told you can't talk about your special physics. Yeah, you're the one afraid of the government. You're the one with a paranoia problem.
I'm not paranoid, Gary. I know everyone's out to get me.
Yeah, see, I know everyone's out to get me. See, so he's already given it away. He's a psychotic, and there's not much you can do. A lot of humans are.
To get me. That's a joke, by the way. Yeah. This, I'll beat you, I'll just yell louder type attitude.
All right, so just more... No, sorry, that doesn't happen. I argue better. That's the attitude. Argue better. Make better arguments. Be more logical. That's the competition we're in, and you're way behind on points. Just way, way, way behind. And there's just no chance of a knockout. I
don't think you're going to be able to keep up. And just as if you want to respond and continue this argument, I'll give you some choices.
Well, okay, so it's back to his physics is sillier than his philosophy. So anyway, all right, so I'll be back with more continuing and such later with some other crap. I'll find some other piece of crap, but that's somehow in the same category of crap, and deal with it. La 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 la. All right, so till the next time and such. All right, should be back and such. So I decided to do a little search on Emendum and came across a couple of, 3-hour superhuman dance videos with my name in the title. Kind of, how much of the content is actually going to have anything to do with something I actually said. Oh, none. So I went in the description. It has some link to this video, as this is supposed to be the nice, concise, brilliant argument. And, I listened to 4 or 5 minutes, and it didn't sound like a great argument to me. So I figured, let's play some of this. So apparently I'm doing it all wrong by explaining to people that if you understand the context of your existence, you'll understand some basic ideas that although you're never going to reincarnate as the person you are, essentially you are going to come back to Earth in the sense that a consciousness will arrive on Earth and it'll have all the features you had when you first got here. Like it'll be totally confused and has to figure out what gravity is and everything is. And the fact is that, if it figures it out kind of in the same way you did, has some similar experiences as a little baby and such, that it might get to 4 or 5 years old and it might have a perspective like yours where it was like, hey, I don't mean to complain, but there's a lot wrong with this game you're having me play. It seems pretty dangerous and uncertain, and deserve doesn't have anything to do with it, and it doesn't make much sense. And so essentially it'll be you, because it'll be the same kind of person who's got some angst about the whole process. That maybe this isn't quite the cupcake we should be eating. Maybe this food is a little spoiled, and it might not be worth the, projectile vomiting later. Ew, I don't really want to do this. Not a complex argument. I mean, it's, so some people might be able to think that way, but other people, they think it's just this one game. Like, I have my life, and then once my life's over, life is gone. No, that's not the way it works at all. So the future is your future in a lot of respects. Now, see, that takes a little bit of, you have to do a little bit of abstract thinking to kind of get the concept that, the future, you really are invested in it, even if you're dead tomorrow, because life goes on. And basically, you're just life. Like, we're all little Duracell batteries and, playing this game that, that one has, squiggly little funny hairs growing out of their forehead and that one doesn't. I mean, playing those kind of games is kind of stupid. It's all the same thing, and we're subjecting it to all of this stuff that we know we wouldn't want to experience. So he thinks he can convince everybody by just saying things like, well, you get it, don't you, that, pain is bad? No, a lot of people don't get it. They step into things, they have no idea what they're going to get. Like a woman steps into pregnancy, she doesn't have any idea whether it's going to be a good thing for her or a really bad thing for her. And she just says, well, I'll take the chance. And she's optimistic that it'll all be okay. And sometimes they find out, they have the first kid and they say, I'll never do that fucking thing again. Because they learn a lesson. And that's how it works with people. And so the whole idea is to talk people through all the lessons they don't want to have to learn personally. You don't want to personally learn not to stick your private parts in a gas flame, for example, or some other stupid... You don't want to have to learn that personally. You want to hear about some asshole who did it and then, oh, okay, I shouldn't do that because, I'll end up like that asshole. But, this is... Well, anyway, I just don't think this is a very good example of communication. But we'll play it anyway.
Was, had reasons for it, so it was still valid. You needed reasons, you needed to name the well-being that wasn't just you avoiding a pain via less bad or more bad being in order for you to have a purely well-being next to the requirement too, but this is totally...
Whatever, that was. Anyway, so his other flow chart, it did have these stupid things where it just said somebody's absurd because you're automatically an antinatalist because you don't want to have kids. Well, I pointed out how that doesn't make any sense. But then it also said things like, if you accept risk, that somehow you're absurd. When you first have to recognize that some people like risk. And they certainly are willing to endure all kinds of horrible things to get something. I mean, they really will pay an awful lot for the candy bar, so to speak. I mean, they'll go through cancer surgeries. They'll go through all kinds of stuff because, they want to have another day with their grandchildren or some kind of bullshit. So they'll take on an awful lot of hardship for what I would argue are insanely overvalued rewards. So you can't really say they're absurd, but by their own definition, they're sadomasochistic. Okay, they will accept an awful lot of degrade in their function, and I would say more rational people don't. They don't think it's worth it. So, but you can't say they're absurd. They're not absurd by their own standards. The point is they have no right to impose their standards on somebody else. And this is where he doesn't get the imposition argument at all. The worst crime is the imposition. The idea that my values, I can expect them to be the child's values. And therefore, I can impose on the child because I wouldn't mind if they imposed on me. That's not how democracy, the constitutional values, the Jeffersonian notions of freedom work. It's not about, I don't mind if you trespass on my property. Because you don't mind somebody trespassing on your property doesn't mean you have a right to trespass on somebody else's. I mean, it doesn't work that way. You don't have a right to impose your values or your notions of a good game on somebody else. And that's the biggest crime committed by the pro-lifers.
Different. We're going to be using truth tables to prove this with propositional logic. So if you don't know what truth tables are, you might want to go brush up on what those are. Sure. But yeah, so things can be either true or false for the variables, for the premises, and for the conclusions. And this is also, we have the comments down there. We'll read the comment.
We know that doesn't really work unless you're really, really incredibly articulate and careful in how you write your questions. So we know that when they do public opinion polls, they don't ask the people the questions. They tell you that's what they ask them. That's not really what they ask them. And they asked other questions in the context. And once you do that, if you ask somebody ahead of time, do you know what the Titanic is? And so you put the Titanic in their head. And then you talk about how wonderful boating is. It's very different than when you ask them, hey, what do you think about boating? And then you talk about the Titanic. So how you talk about something is really important to how people will react to the question.
It's after we go through this. So this is the truth table for hashtag into wellbeing right next to me here. It goes 2, 4, 8, 16. There's P, PQ, PQR, PQRS. So now it uses a...
What the hell? I mean, see, this isn't exactly a really convincing kind of beginning to a book or a story or a way of communicating an idea. I don't think most people would say, hey, yeah, I really get where this guy's going. PQ and such.
A sub-branch of logic called combinatorics. If you're interested in that, check that out.
So this is his go-to argument. He says this is the one that really will get them all. Yeah.
Okay, so now let's just go right into the part 2 here. If it lets us.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, yeah.
I did watch some of this.
So,
didn't seem
2 minutes in.
Didn't seem this bad the first time. I guess I skipped over the whole comparectex part and everything.
Now we'll get into the part 2 after that little intro there. So this is the question that I'll be asking everyone.
Cool.
This is the propositionally sound and valid logic format, or whatever you want to call it, formal logic format for this, for Name the Wellbeing.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is it. This is the big question.
All right, so if you're going to attack the argument and you want it to be all formal and all, so you can try to find little loopholes in it and stuff, this is your thing, okay? Even though you're not going to.
Okay.
Or if you do, we'll just fix it because we have all the reasons already. We have all the...
I will just pretend you didn't say anything because I won't counter-argue anything because...
validity that we need. We have all the evidence for hashtag Name the Wellbeing.
Oh, please, all the evidence. some more supporting arguments is what you could say. It's not really evidence. It's supporting arguments.
So we'll just make it even more into a diamond of an argument. Okay. So,
all right, this is the diamond. This is the real stuff. This ain't no friggin' costume jewelry. This ain't no Zarkunian zipperati. No, sir, this is the real deal of argumentation.
On your current view, if purely well-being is true of a given being who has...
Sorry. I mean, already, you can't tell me that's good grammar. That's not a sentence of any kind. If well-being is true of what? Let's go back and do that again. What the hell was that?
If purely well-being is true of a given being.
If well-being is true of a given being. So do they truly have well-being? Are they truly well-being focused? Or they have a well-being bucket? Or what the hell could that mean? Who knows? Let's go continue.
Who has universal avoidance of serious pain and death value.
Universal, serious revulsion to pain. No, the point is obviously people, their aversion is proportional to some desire mechanism. So clearly it's not universal. So we know that people don't universally dislike suffering. Some people are more sensitive than others, and for all kinds of reasons, because they either understand or don't understand. There's people who eat animals, they don't understand that, oh, you mean I'm harming something? They don't really get it at all. So they have a great deal of tolerance for that. And then some people, some people like to go to the hospital. They like people to pay attention to them, even though they're, paying $2,000 a day or whatever. But whatever. Let's continue. It's like a nice whorehouse to them. Ooh, they bring me breakfast in bed.
Who is switched to match those true of a given being who doesn't have universal avoidance of serious pain and death value.
Okay, so we switch to a person who doesn't have universal aversion to pain and death value thingy. So again, this really just can't mean anything because we already know that most of these people who are pro-life, they do know they're going to die. And they do know that their life was going to have pain in it. So it's not really rational to say, well, if you wish to avoid pain, why are you living? Of course they wish to. They would like to be one of the people who gets off easy. They'd like to be one of the people that doesn't get coronavirus or doesn't get the plague or doesn't get this or doesn't get that, doesn't get disabled, doesn't get arthritis, doesn't get, balding, doesn't go bald. They like to be all those things, but it doesn't mean they're going to kill themselves if they do.
Is there any point where the being retains purely well-being process where avoidance of serious pain and death value is lost?
I'm sorry. I mean, I'm not really a dumb person. I mean, I could give this sentence to whatever this crap is. I could give it to 100 people, and they would give me 100 different descriptions of what the fuck he said there. I'm sure of it. I think if we do the man on the street thing and we read this crap to somebody on the street, one person will say, the Penguin did it. No, Batman. They'll come up with something, but it won't have anything to do with the subject. Because what the hell is he talking about? This is an argument? This is a question?
Okay, so I read the parentheses, what's in the parentheses there, just so that it's very clear. It's meant to be read without reading the parentheses, but because that's obviously talk.
The squiggly red line really helps. I'm telling you. Obviously I can't read it because it's too small a text and blah 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 blah. But whatever.
It's about at the end.
Maybe you put the question in here. Maybe it's in the description. Oh, sorry, no. Too bad.
So
because maybe I could read it a few hundred times and I might be able to pick something. I mean, I sort of know what well-being is, but I mean, it's sort of a mushy word, and does that mean you're the character of your current sentient condition, or does that mean the fact that you can have a well-being, or does that actually mean that you're doing well?
If the answer to this question, because it's a question now, is
well, you could have fooled me, and yeah, I think you could have fooled 9 out of 10 people with this question.
Yes, then do you know which purely well-being, or plural, defines this point? So that's the other question.
So the other question is, which well-being clearly defines this point? Shit, I'm not going to do well on this test at all. Damn it. Yeah. Can you give me multiple choice? Yeah, maybe multiple choice question. Yeah, can you give me multiple choices? Oh, I can just say yes or no? Oh, okay, I'll say yes. I'm just guessing.
Question mark. If you answered yes. If you answered no, you've contradicted yourself by...
Good. I didn't contradict myself. Yay. Pretty good. So somebody already has a bunch of statements in their head of this gibberish, and they somehow contradicted their own statements in their own head by saying yes to that question, whatever that question was. No to that question.
Holding a view that falls in category X, while denying the given being has universal avoidance of serious pain and death value.
Has universal avoidance of pain and death value. They have that value. Again, everybody wants to go to Las Vegas and win $1 million. But they'll be happy to win 50. They'll be happy to win 10. They'll be happy not to lose any money. So why is this even a subject? I mean, I'm saying there's really no ground for it to be a subject. Alright, should be back and such. Interruptions. Blah, blah, blah.
Pretty simple.
Yes, no, that was simple, right? It happened a while ago. Yeah, it wasn't. From what I remember, it wasn't anything simple in there, except for the answers, yes and no, of course.
I think to understand. So if no, then you contradict yourself. So you have to answer yes. So which?
So this whole idea that you contradict yourself when you didn't premise the question with how much crap will you endure, though? How much would you do it again? Okay, would you live your life again if you lost your arm in the war or something, or if some nasty stuff happened? And there's lots of people who would say yes. I don't, it seems irrational to me. I don't see it. When you add up all the crap in life and all the learning experiences, and you have to be an asshole all over again. So many asshole moments where, ooh, I wish I didn't do that, or ooh, I wish I didn't do that. Lots of those things in your life. Regrettables. That even the regrettables would be enough of a pile of crap where you'd say, oh, I really wouldn't like to do that again. Relive all that crap again. Oh, yuck.
Purely well-beings? Question mark.
Purely well-beings. Maybe he thinks well-beings are like tadpoles. And you keep some in your, you have a tadpole bowl in your counter, and it's your well-being bowl. I don't know. Well-beings.
Right. So obviously the person can then go on to name whatever it is that they think.
So they're naming their tadpoles. Okay. Yeah, probably better to have goldfish or something, because you wouldn't have as many, and you might be able to. Well, then they look alike sometimes, and you're going to confuse the Joe fish with the Fred fish. Yeah, nah.
I think it's the well-being. Okay. I noticed these people that have been using this word, like Sam Harris and Matt Dillahunty and Ask Yourself and a large...
Whatever. So he thinks he invented that. Actually, Sam Harris uses... Let's see, what's his most famous one? He uses that word for, like... It doesn't mean you're really doing well. It just means you are surviving tolerably. He has a word for that. Anyway, in terms of... It's more of an outcome word.
Volume of the vegan community never actually define what they mean by well-being, and they have to. This argument forces them to, it's pretty.
I don't even know. Sorry. Yeah, it never even occurred to me to try to approximate either moments or all of life into some sort of well-being number. can you really do, like, oh, I'm a 7. People do that with like anxiety, and you're supposed to sit there and figure out what's my anxiety level on a scale of 1 to 10. I don't know. It's always really hard when it's like 8, like 6 to 9 is really it's difficult. Anyway, it's easy to go like if you could just say 1 or 10, but yeah, the ones in the middle are difficult.
Useful for that. It will force them to do it, otherwise they will contradict themselves. So this just exposes their contradictions. So yes.
So they could say, yes, I wish to avoid pain and suffering, and then they could say, and yes, I would like to play again, even though I endured pain and suffering. And that would be a contradiction, apparently. I don't think that's a contradiction. I think that's where you have to explain to people how they really haven't accomplished anything, and they're paying money, and they really shouldn't pay for something they don't get anything back. Like, you shouldn't buy a car that doesn't have a steering wheel or tires or an engine or fenders, or you shouldn't buy lemons, and life is a lemon.
Orgasms would be an example of one.
Oh dear.
The people name and have named in the past to rebut the original name, the well-being, not this one.
Well, that's just so trivial in a way, because we know these are just I mean, frankly, we all tend to exaggerate things, but I mean, what 30 seconds, maybe, I don't know. And it's the twilight after the is kind of it's, if you had to add up the whole experience, I don't know whether you really do profit, but whatever. Yeah. So anyway, but yes, it's kind of a trivial one. It's more about addiction. Okay, it really isn't about outcomes. So even heroin addicts, you could just always go back to the addiction and say, the heroin addict can probably know I'm not winning because there's poo-poo and vomit all over my room. And I look like shit, and I can barely breathe. So yeah, this isn't really working. But at the same time, they think they're getting somewhere. They are catching the dragon. They are somehow flying somewhere, or going somewhere. But the evidence is they always miss and crash on the rocks. But they have some idea that they actually do fly.
Because this one is the formal argument. This is the first video that has ever taken place for that. And to give an example, to give 2 examples really quick, we'll give orgasms and love. Okay? So.
Oh, well, that would be just awful to bring that up as anything but jeez. How much, let's see, let's take a survey of what love has done on planet Earth in terms of how much it has ruined people. How much of it is unrequited, how much of it is, totally broken by tragedy, the grief and the loss, even between humans and their pets. All of that love, came at a huge price. And it's also sort of a desperate thing, Sometimes love is a desperate dependency. So again, we're just talking about another form of addiction, another forced attachment, another compulsion of, I must have it, the precious. We're all smeagling, through our lives. The reality is quite ugly, even when the emotion is grand and the passion is great. If you really look at it, what's underneath it is, it's made of an infection. It's made of pus. It's, we don't love very honorably. We love for trivial reasons. It's all quite tragic. So anyway, that's probably enough of this mush. This is just so distant from anything I understand as a persuasive argument. So yes, we have completely different styles and rudimentary values, I guess. I mean, maybe to some extent it rolls in his head, the meat grinder, the whole going through all this, the Jurassic and the Prosaic and all these times on Earth when all these organisms are getting ground up, and millions of years of this, and then more to our own perspective, we can understand just human history, all the bodies on the Roman battlefields, half killed, all the horrors that have been experienced. Maybe some of that rolls through his head, and that's the motivation. But clearly he's interpreted it into some kind of argument that I can't understand or appreciate as being terribly meaningful. And especially when it's absent the key ingredient, which is, it isn't about what you want personally. It's not about what you like personally. It's not about what you would accept personally. It's about what you have a right to impose. And that's the big one. Just because I like broccoli and rice or something, just because I like a certain kind of this or a certain kind of that, why should I have any notion that I should impose that on somebody else and expect them to like it? Why should I have the expectation that they're required to accept these prices we pay? Too silly. The risks you'll accept for yourself are not the risks you have a right to impose on somebody else. It's just that simple. From my perspective, that's the first argument. Is there is no right to reproduce, to play God, to impose a destiny. There just isn't a right to do that. Alright, so enough of a video, I think, and so till the next time and such. If somebody knows whatever, I've asked before, but if anybody can put anything this person has to say or any of his critiques of me into any kind of form that's readable, go ahead and post a comment, ask me the questions, or pose to me the counter argument or something in some kind of form that's understandable. But all I've heard from this asshole, okay, is just gratuitously stupid. Even on the video that links to this video, it's a Photoshop images. I mean, that's the best he can do, is Photoshop people. I mean, he's so childish, so immature, so fucking useless as some sort of foil, even some sort of, you gain some improvement in your arguments through this battlefield of ideas. Having to endure all the slings and arrows makes you pretty good at taking your sword and deflecting them. But I don't even understand what his problem is. I mean, what is his issue? I don't get it. He seems to just make he has a bunch of complaints about my personal appearance and personal lifestyle and all that kind of stuff, and I don't see anything on the actual subject. But anyway, never mind. I probably shouldn't even pay any attention at all. So, till the next time and such, and so forth and whatnot. I mean, I should be able to go back here. You can just see the silly icons. I mean, look at this. What the hell is this? It's just so. If you have a good argument, you don't need to resort to this cartoon crap. Just so bad. Anyway, until the next time and such, so forth and whatnot. Really should be enough. Yeah, nothing much in Mendemy. Yeah, it's just the way it works out, I guess. I have to work on. There is this. Yeah, the priest at the back in Mendham is making apparently videos. So I probably ought to make fun of him. It's always fun to irritate the religious people. Anyway, but we'll see. Till the next time and such then. I think this has been a Do Not God video presentation. And till the next time and such.